Look how beautiful it is today in Montana. We got super nice sunshine. We got frosty trees. It's super nice here today. But that's not what we want to talk about. We don't want to talk about the weather. We want to talk about this thing up there, Starlink. Starlink is great. It's a little late in the year. It's first week of December is already over and it's cold here. But we'll be talking about camping and Starlink, and mainly about full-time RVers probably, because they will use Starlink a lot. And anytime you're not on the grid, anytime you can't plug in, you will suck a lot of power from your batteries. So anytime you go camping with your Starlink, you'll drain your batteries pretty quick if you buy an inverter. And they're out there, they're cheap, but there are some issues with that. And there's actually a product that can make your battery last longer when you're using your Starlink. Well, I came inside for this recording because it is a little chilly outside. It's in the low 20s, maybe even below that. But it's beautiful out, I mean, to look at anyway, but it's extremely cold. And never mind my hairdo, but I gotta wear a hat. I've been wearing a hat already for several hours this morning, so my hair is all over the place. So sorry, it's just what it is. That is life in the cold. Hairdos look a little different in the wintertime. But anyway, we want to talk about Starlink. So if you take your Starlink with you when you're going camping, you need 120 volts to power that thing up. The router and the dish together need to be plugged into a regular household outlet so that it functions properly. And that is a problem because you either already have an inverter in your motorhome, camper van, travel trailer, fifth wheel, whatever you have, right? And well, you may have a huge inverter in there, and that inverter uses power even if you don't use anything, just to power it up to begin with. Also, inverters are only so efficient, and most inverters are only about 80 to 85% efficient when they're working right at the best limit where they convert from DC to AC, right? But if you're not right at that threshold, if you're way below, like for a Starlink that uses very little, it may even be less efficient. And well, you may say, now I have a little tiny inverter, and you just went out and bought a little tiny inverter at, who knows, Harbor Freight, Home Depot, whatever, a cheap one. And I'm sorry, when you buy a cheap inverter, you get a cheap inverter, which means it's going to be not very efficient at all, which means we're going to be 80% or less probably on that inverter. And you're just powering up your Starlink and you're wasting power because you lose the efficiency. And now you may ask, what does that mean, losing the efficiency? Well, let's just assume the Starlink uses 1 amp, right? So not very much, very little. That's just an assumption. That's not really necessarily what it uses, but let's just assume it uses 1 amp, right? So Starlink needs 1 amp, and it needs 1 amp in DC power, right? So, but what happens? Well, what you plug into the outlet, this little box, that is a AC to DC converter. So it takes the AC that comes from the outlet, converts it to DC. It is only so efficient. If that is only 80% efficient, let's say, then I need 20% more in to get out what I need. So if to get 1 amp, I need 20% more in, means I need about 1.2 amps in from the AC to get that 1 amp DC. All right, now we're going further back because now you have AC. So now we're going to your inverter. Out of your inverter now, we need 1.2 amps, right? If your inverter is only about 80% efficient, that means we need another 20% more in, which means we come up to almost 1.5 amps. I believe it's 1.44 amps, right? So about 1.5 amps into that inverter. That 1.5 amps comes out of your battery. but you only need 1 amp over there at the Starlink. So basically you have a 50% loss pretty much, which is a lot. So you have a 50% loss of power from your battery to your Starlink. And that is the problem. So we need to eliminate that loss and keep this loss to a minimum, because if you're using 50% more, you're going to drain your batteries much faster. And this is just an example, an assumption, okay? These numbers are not correct. These numbers are different for everyone because it really depends. I mean, it starts with your battery voltage, where you start at, right? And it depends on your inverter. It depends on so many different factors. But you definitely have a loss. And if you want to increase the life of your battery on your travel trailer, camper, whatever, motorhome, if you want to increase the life or how long it lasts on one charge while using Starlink, then you need to eliminate all these inverters in between, because they're creating all that loss. And if you can eliminate those, then your battery will last longer. And so you can stay out an extra day before you have to go somewhere and recharge your batteries. Also, for some people, instead of turning it on and off the Starlink only when they need it, some people can just leave it on because they can use less power if they eliminate these inverters. But how do you eliminate the inverters? Well, a company called Xtar makes an EL6. And this is basically this thing right here. This is a Xtar-Link, they call it, a DC conversion for Starlink version 3. This is the model EL6 right here. And if you use this, you no longer use that block that you plug into the power outlet. But you also will have to use a different router, not the router that's provided from Starlink. And you can buy a whole package from Xtar. Let's see here. Here we go. And they provide a router. Basically, you can use any 12-volt router. So you don't have to use this one that they provide, but you can purchase your own as long as it's a 12-volt router. That's all there is to it. And now, if we're using this, now we don't need 120 volts anymore. Now we can use 12 volt, and this uses 12 volt, so it's all 12 volts. So we're no longer going through the conversion. So we can hook this here directly to the battery. They actually provide a cable like this with a couple battery locks on it, so you can permanently connect it to a battery if you want to. Or, where is it? It disappeared. Here it is. They also provide this cable here that has a 12 volt plug on it like this, commonly called a cigarette lighter plug, even though they're usually power outlets, no longer cigarette lighters these days. But you can either use this or you can use that and hook this up to 12 volt. And it's very simple to hook up. Right here is the power port. It's labeled right there, 12 volt DC. Then we have the cable that is going to the router, which also here is the LAN right there. It plugs in right there. No big deal. It's all here. And then we got this little cable that is the 12 volt output right here that feeds the router. So we feed the router out of here 12 volt. We also plug in, here is a port. Can I show it there? Port that's labeled output, and that port it says there 56 volts. That is what goes to your Starlink. So you plug your Starlink right into this port right here, and that powers the Starlink. And now we eliminated the conversion from battery, which is DC, with an inverter to AC, so that we then can plug in the AC to DC converter that comes with your Starlink, right, to get it back from AC to DC, because all the Starlink stuff works on DC. So we eliminate two inverters. By using this, we can go directly from the battery to this, and all this does, it provides the 12 volt output to the 12 volt router right here, which, like I said, you can use any 12 volt router, and it ups the voltage from 12 to 56 volt for the Starlink dish. So, but there's no more conversion from AC to DC. or actually from DC to AC and then AC to DC, right? You had 2 times conversion. Now you eliminate all this. All you do is DC in, DC out, 12 volt to the router, and then 56 volt up to the Starlink dish. So by eliminating all that, we are way more efficient. So this also has a little bit of loss because obviously we got to bring the voltage up to 56. There will be a little bit of loss. Everything has a little bit of loss. Anytime we change something, right? We change energy from one thing to another, whatever. There's always a bit of loss. But the loss in here is way smaller. And this is designed exactly for the amount of power that Starlink needs and the router needs that we have here, right? So it's designed for this, and it's optimized for these to be efficient at these voltages and at the power, however many amps that Starlink actually needs. This is optimized to run at this, and it's probably about 90+% efficient while it's doing this. And this is where you're saving. So now you're basically losing 10% instead of about 50%. So that gives you, that's like a 40% win, right? 40% is a lot. So for many people, this, like I said, they just used to turn Starlink off all the time, but now they just leave it on the whole time and they get to stay out and about as long as they did before without Starlink. Or they can still shut it down and maybe gain a day or 2 on battery life, right? So that is what this is all about. So this is kind of a must-have for RVers. Your full-time RVers out there have that big old inverter in there. If you don't really use the big old inverter for a whole bunch of stuff in your motorhome all the time, then you should have this. If you just want your Starlink going and you don't need that big old inverter going just for this little thing, then you want to get the Xtar EL6 here for the Starlink version 3, and this saves a lot of power. And so we've been using this on a few camping trips throughout the summer without an inverter. That the travel trailer we used does not have an inverter, and well, this does great because we can hook it straight to the battery or plug it into the cigarette lighter outlet, the power outlet inside the travel trailer, and work it from there. It uses very little power, and it lasts longer. Now we have internet, and if we turn it off at night when we don't need it, we can be out there the same amount of days as before without internet at all. Now we have internet when we're during the day when we're at the trailer, and we can be out there as long as before. So this is a really cool thing. So this is from Xtar, and Xtar did provide this to me to test it out. They've seen some of my Starlink videos, and so they provided this to me, and we tested this out, and this functions good. Now, some people might say that you just want to get the Starlink Mini, because the Starlink Mini can actually run off low voltage power, right? You can bring one of those little battery packs, and I did that before. I have a little jumper pack, and I can run about an hour of Starlink Mini on there. And if you have a bigger battery pack, or you have a USB outlet that can provide enough power, then you can do that all low voltage. But Starlink Mini has some disadvantages. First of all, the big Starlink is more than twice the size of Starlink Mini, and size kind of matters. So the bigger the Starlink is, obviously the bigger the field of view, the easier it is for a satellite to hit that antenna, right? If your antenna is much smaller, it's a little more difficult. And so if you have inclement weather, you have heavy rain or even snowfall. I mean, yeah, here in Montana, sometimes we're out camping in snowfall because it's hunting season late in the year, right? So that happens. Then with the little antenna, that is a disadvantage because it just obstructs the antenna basically, and the signal weakens. So we get a lesser signal between the antenna and the satellites. Also, the other thing is the router is built into Starlink Mini antenna. So wherever you place the antenna, that's where your router is. So that means it could be 100 feet away from you, which is not necessarily good because now you have a back connection between your antenna, your router, and where you're at in your camper, because you might be 100 feet away. It may be on the other side of another camper. It may be behind a building. It may be, you might be in the forest and you put that in a clearing somewhere and there's obstructions. And then if you have inclement weather again, then you have more obstructions and you get a weaker signal to your device that you're using to access the internet. While with the regular Starlink, your router is going to be with you. In this case, you would have one of these routers with you, and the antenna is wherever it needs to be. You can even use an extension, and extend that another 100 feet out with the regular Starlink. You still have great reception between your router and the device that you're using. So Starlink Mini is not really the perfect thing for an RVer. So if you go out camping, it's much better to actually bring your big Starlink. That will be much easier, especially if you're a full-time RVer, or if you're dry camping a lot, where you don't have power hookup. I mean, this here is definitely the way to go. This worked great for us. And we were able to stay longer with having power and having this connectivity than before. And at times when we knew we wouldn't stay that long, we just left it on all the time so that we could use Wi-Fi calling, right? And anybody could call us or send us text messages day and night, whatever. So you want to check that out. It's Xtar. This is the Xtar-Link EL6 here for the version generation 3 Starlink. So go check out their website. There's a link down below in the description. They also have other things. I've seen solar panels there and a whole bunch of other stuff. They got a lot of interesting stuff. So go check out Xtar. I think it's xtardirect.com if I'm not mistaken. I put the link down below in the description. Go check them out. If I'm not totally mistaken, they also have one for a Gen 2. I'm not 100% positive, but I thought I seen such a setup for a Gen 2 possibility. So because if you have a second generation, then this here doesn't work. This only works for the third generation router Starlink setup, okay? So, but go check it out. They have lots of cool stuff. If you're a camper, you'll definitely find stuff. If you're a Starlink person, go check them out. Regardless if you're camping or not, you might find something there. And I'm going to put the link in the description. And a huge thank you to Xtar for giving us this setup here for free. This is really cool. I mean, like I said, it works wonderful. It's great. It makes camping a breeze. We also used our Starlink Mini when we were out and about. But for camping, we found that this setup here is better than the Starlink Mini. The Starlink Mini has great advantage, like we throw it on the dash in the Cybertruck, because the Cybertruck has this big old dash, big old windshield. And so we shove it kind of forward on the dash, and so it lays there flat. And now it can even almost backwards because there's such a huge windshield. It's hardly ever obstructed by the truck itself. And it works great. Driving around, Starlink Mini works wonderful. And because the router is built into the antenna, we have no separate router and we just have that sitting on the dash. And that works great. But when you're camping and you need to set the antenna ways out, like if we're here in the forest, then we need to find a clearing somewhere where we can put the antenna. And that's 100 feet away. That could be even further away when we use an extension cord. And well, Starlink Mini doesn't work so great at that point because the router goes away with the antenna wherever you place it. While with this setup here, we could keep everything in the camper while the antenna was wherever it was and there was no problem. So again, shout out to Xtar. Thank you for giving us this setup and letting us test this out. It works great. So go check them out. There's a link down below in the description to xtardirect.com. Like I said, they have also a whole bunch of other cool stuff. And well, actually it is early December, so Christmas coming up. Maybe you have someone in the family and you still need this present for that person and you don't know what to give them because they have everything. Chances are they do not have this thing, or chances are they don't have what you could find on Xtar's website. So go check them out. Well, Also, we have other links down below if you're still looking for Christmas gifts and stuff. We have several companies listed down there with links. Most of these links there we have discount codes, coupon codes, so go check them out. Use the links. Every time you use our link and our discount code, we get a little kickback. It helps the channel out, so that would be wonderful if you would use our links for all these companies. And these companies that we have listed down there, we know their products are good. We use their products. We're happy with the products, and that's why we have them down there. We don't put companies down there. We actually don't even make videos if a product is no good. So if we get something to test or we purchase something and we're not happy with it, there's usually no video. So we make videos with stuff that we're happy with. So go check out all the links down below, including the link for Xtar. And yeah, go check out those websites. Well, and it's like I said, it's December, and if I don't see you anymore before Christmas, Merry Christmas, I guess. Happy holidays. I think we have a couple more videos before that comes along, but in the worst case, Happy New Year. But I hope you keep watching our videos. I hope you give us a thumbs up for this video. I hope you give us a thumbs up for every video that you watch from us. And I hope you are subscribed to our channel. If not, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when we have a new video coming out. Also, feel free to share our videos. There's a button right below there that says share that you can click, and you can share it with anyone. So if you know someone that needs something like this here, share the link for this video. Share the link to our channel. We're big fans of Starlink. So yeah. Feel free to share all our videos with anyone else out there. Well, in any event, thank you for watching. Goodbye.